So Eric is the founder and lead advisor of ProfileHelper.com, lead profile advisor, I should say, and has 20 plus years of online dating coaching experience. Eric is really quite unique in this industry, I must say. He's got long tenure advising end users. Eric started out in PR, actually, and is formally trained in crisis management from somebody from Monsanto, FYI. Yeah, so trained by the best in that particular niche field. Eric wrote the Ask the Expert dating advice column, which featured in over 250 newspapers. He's been on the Cortland Brooks team now 17 years and has advised 35 plus dating sites and counting. He's my friend, and he's known for his strong opinion and well-informed opinions, I must say. So without further ado, Eric, if you'd like to take it away. All right.
So
I'll leave you to it. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, excellent. So I want to thank Colin. A lot of the things that Colin mentioned, I'm going to be circling back on today. Just quickly, just to tell you who I am. I know we're running a couple minutes behind because technology. It was never my original goal to be working in the dating industry. I got my start in PR. I was trained, as Mark said, by the crisis counselor from Monsanto and one of the former heads of PR for Coke. It gave me a really interesting perspective where I learned how to not just fix the crises that companies were having, but seek them out before they became crises. Actually start online. Well, I started online dating, I guess, pretty early in the industry. It was around the year 2000 when the very first girl I dated when I was 10 years old at summer camp, we reconnected and we were talking, and she told me that she had met her fiance on JDate, and she had suggested that I give it a shot. And so that was the beginning of my online dating. And honestly, from there, every major relationship I had was one that started through someone who I met on a dating site or a dating app. 2004 is when I really started working in the industry. I was out of the PR field, and I answered a blind ad on Monster.com, of all places, for a dating company who was looking for help with profile writing. It turned out to be Match. They were running a service through a 900 number. As you can imagine, given that it was run through a 900 number, it did not last very long, but it was long enough to hook me in. They had 20 writers you could choose from. I was their most requested writer. I was handling about 60% of their requests. And so when they pulled the plug on that service, I plugged it back in myself and I started Profile Helper. I still remember one of the very first people who ever came to me was just a perfect example of what helping someone could do to change the way they're presenting themselves. This is not the first time I've mentioned this guy's profile before, because I still have it memorized. It was, my fiance died a year and a half ago. I'm not entirely over her, but I think she'd like me to move on. I'm looking for someone who's not entirely like, someone who's almost entirely like her, but not a fall down drunk. That was a guy who, when we took all of that stuff out and started focusing on the things in life that he liked and he was passionate about, he was able to start dating. Should he have started dating before getting some therapy? I don't know. I was in my 20s then, and I wasn't necessarily as wise as I am now. Now I would probably suggest the therapy first. But since then, I launched Profile Helper in May of 2005, and I've had the chance to work with over 40,000 individual single daters. Also around that time is when I met Mark and became part of the Cortland Brooks team. And it's great because team's a good word for it. It's sort of, there's all these different consultants with different fields of expertise, but we're able to come together and in an efficient way and at an effective cost for the companies who need us, whether they're starting up or whether they're some of the largest companies in the industry, to come in and give them that sort of full agency experience with a lot of specific knowledge that most companies don't have who don't focus on this industry. If you want to know more about it, Mark is the guy to talk to. He is the Cortland Brooks in the Cortland Brooks agency. But, as I said, so I started online dating myself around 2000, and it's how I make my living. It's an important industry to me. Without the business, without these dating apps, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a wife. I might have a wife, but I wouldn't have this wife, and she's pretty great. So I've been the online dater. I've had the conversations with thousands of online daters. And I've even stepped into the shoes of female online daters to see what they're experiencing, so I could not just help them better, but correct the actions of some of my male clients better. And I've seen things honestly, that if I were to talk about them too much here, I'd be canceled. I've seen more than my fair share of unsolicited penis photos. I have gotten pickup lines that made me wonder if I should call the cops until I found out they'd just stolen them off Reddit. But it taught me, like, that was the first real heavy lesson of not just how poorly people do at presenting and communicating themselves, but the effect it can have on the person they're reaching out to. And so instead of this more thoughtful approach to online dating, the failure pushes people into the numbers grind. And it's something that it grinds them down to the nub. It hurts them. It hurts the people they're reaching out to. And as a result, it hurts the dating apps. So, what I've noticed specifically over the last several years, we're talking sort of post-pandemic, is there's this growing sense of negativity and cynicism in the people who are reaching out to me. 10 years ago, the main reason people would call me is because they just needed help with a profile or picking the best photos. They still call me for that, but a lot of times there's also a big conversation to be had about how they feel like the apps are working against them. They used to have sort of an optimism about the opportunity that was involved in dating and using online dating apps, but now it's sort of been replaced with fear of the algorithm and what's the algorithm going to do to them instead of for them. They feel like they're being forced to spend more money to get past additional paywalls that are being thrown up in front of their faces on basic functionality. And even as Colin mentioned, there are a lot of people who have the real firm belief, and I don't know the fundamentals of this is true, but maybe you guys would. They have this real firm belief that apps are purposefully keeping them from the people they'd be most compatible with to lengthen their stay on the sites, to improve the profitability per member at the risk of the happiness of the member. These people, online dating's been around for 20 years. It's been around before cell phones were really a big thing. But we've had mobile phones, we've had mobile games for so long. The members aren't dumb enough that they don't recognize monetization and microtransactions and that Candy Crush experience sort of being ported into what they're doing. So I don't want to call out any specific apps. I'll do that on a couple things later on, but just some of the things that I get complaints about from clients. There's a lot of complaints when it comes to what I call mutually reliant swipe apps. Those are apps where both people have to swipe on each other before communication can have. And a lot of them will offer features that will let you sort of jump the line and get ahead of that. But some of those features are $9 per message. Yes, they can be less if you are willing to buy $100 worth. But that's, for sites that people are used to using for free, you're throwing up major barriers that end up feeling insulting to these users. Apps are introducing perks and then taking them away. You might be paying for a membership level that lets you see who else is paid on the app. But then after 6 months of that, that feature now only shows you who else is paid at the highest level. So now you don't see most of the people who are paid. You have to guess about 2/3 of the database. And there's even apps that are sort of just de-emphasizing search tools when they have them. I have had clients who have been on some of the larger dating apps for 2 or 3 years and didn't know that some of these apps actually had search features. Because you hop on, you push right into a discovery tool, into a carousel, and it's off and running on the swiping game. And that's the whole thing. I mean, Tinder it plays a huge role in this industry. When they came on the scene, it changed everything, and it's probably why 90% of the new dating apps that are out there right now are essentially Tinder clones. They're not offering that much more. The focus, especially as more and more investor monies come in, is it's been more towards the user engagement and a lot less towards the user experience. And a big part of that is the dopamine effect. I refer to a lot of these mutual swipe apps as the dopamine slot machine. When the words "it's a match" pop up on your screen, you feel just as good as when you pull the handle on a slot machine or when you're scratching off a lotto ticket. But it wears you down. It hurts, it hurts the people who are using it. And one example is I've had a lot of clients over the years who are they've been in recovery for drug or alcohol addiction. And they actually tell me that mechanic on these dating apps is triggering to their addictions. So just to take a step back a little bit and talk about who these daters are. There's mainly 4 groups. There's the sub 27-year-olds, there's the 27 through 39s, the 40 to 55s and 55 pluses. They are all very important to what's going on for us, but they all have very different needs and very different goals. I mean, 55 plus largely are coming to us as divorced or widowed. They are looking for the next great love of their lives, or the last love of their lives. But they go onto these platforms initially that they're being told are specifically for them, and they're feeling unrespected, they're feeling unprotected. They're seeing higher rates of scammers, they're seeing a lack of customer service, they're seeing databases of people that I've had multiple women describe to me as everyone on there is looking for a nurse or a purse. When they actually end up finding success, it's when they go to larger dating apps where people don't go when they want to be classified as the quote unquote. These people, they know what they want, but they're having trouble getting it. And they're also, as much as they know what they want, they're also sometimes a little more susceptible to scams. I have spoken to hundreds of scam victims over the years, some who have lost upwards of $250,000. And there's more that we could be doing to protect them. And even if it's just giving them a little more education. There's one female client I had, she was 83 when she came to me. 5 years earlier, she had lost $15,000 to a scammer that she had met through a dating app. And she wanted to meet someone. She was lonely. She wanted to meet someone. She called me first. She didn't want to get back on until she knew she could do it safely. It wasn't a hard conversation to teach her how to online date safely, to tell her the things that don't belong in the profile, things that make her a target, to tell her the things she should watch out from and for in other people's profiles. She's dating someone. She's in a relationship with someone that she met online now. She wouldn't have come back if she didn't have some sort of assurance. Then you've got the 40 to 55-year-old groups. That's my group. I'm 47. I'm almost 47. I met my wife online, and for a lot of these people, they're either looking for a long-term relationship, a partner, and they've never been married, but more of them met their first spouse or their first major long-term relationship on the OG dating sites, Match, eHarmony, JDate, OkCupid. They've been off of them for 5, 10, 15 years, and they're back, and it's a different world. They feel like they've woken up and they're speaking the wrong language. And unfortunately, when they talk to their younger coworkers are saying, well, you got to get on this, you got to grind through, you got to swipe, and you got to keep going. And they burn out and they quit. I see this group being some of my most successful clients. They don't, again, it's all about taking a little bit of time to give them a little bit of guidance to make sure they're not focusing on the things that were problems in their last relationships, to focus on the things they're passionate about, to how to taking 5 minutes to teach them how to read a profile, to focus on not just, do I want this person, but does this sound like the kind of person I could actually have fun going to Costco with? When you can get them to that place, I have seen hundreds of marriages, thousands of relationships. It's an absolute turnaround for people who call me completely stressed out. And that takes us to the 27 to 39-year-olds who are really interesting because they're at a place where they're the group who just had their frontal lobes fully. They grew up sort of with Tinder and Bumble, but they also grew up with more traditional dating apps. They had the online, but they also still had the playground. And they get on here, and what they're noticing is inauthenticity, something that Colin mentioned heavily. These are people who are looking to make big decisions in their lives. They're looking for someone to share their lives with, someone to start a family with. And what they're coming up with are profiles that have a sentence or less, photos that are obviously altered or tweaked, conversations that don't go anywhere, matches that don't lead to conversations because of the amount of people who are on apps for the ego hit, for the dopamine fix, or for the validation. So there's a lot of problem that's driving them away. But, again, it does not take a tremendous amount of information to take those people and help them connect. And I'm seeing them finding relationships, starting families, having kids, when they were coming to me frustrated that they've been on an app for 6-7 months, they hadn't spoken to a single person. And finally, we have the future, the sub 27-year-olds, the most emotionally vulnerable and cynical and jaded community. They grew up on a curated diet of social media. You and I, a lot of us grew up on a playground. They grew up on Club Penguin. They had Roblox and Minecraft while I was playing Super Mario Brothers. They are lacking a lot of the basic interpersonal skills that they need. And unfortunately, without proper guidance, they're turning to the online influencers, and they're getting heavily exploited, where things like mewing comes from. It's, they're looking at these guys, these like pseudo Sigma bros who are telling them how to increase their Riz, but they're also, interestingly, the age group that right now is least interested in dating because dating wasn't as big of a factor for a lot of them. And for the ones who are on the younger side, when they first were interested in dating, they were stuck at home for 2 years. And so there's a lack of even a thought of how to approach things. So they just don't. It's why we're also seeing in some of the other Asian countries like Japan, we're seeing an increase in virgins who are in their 30s. I'm seeing in the US people contacting me who haven't had a first date in their life, and they're 25, 30 years old. And it's largely because they've lived online. They don't know how to connect. But if we don't help them, if we can't help them find a way to sort of find their own humanity and the humanity in the people around them, we're not going to have an industry when they're the bulk of the people who are looking, who are making up our databases. So like they're different groups, but they do share a lot of the same problems. They're all downloading these apps because they're missing something in their lives. They see dating as a solution, online dating as a solution, but they don't feel like it's designed to help them anymore. They're struggling to communicate effectively. They are so sick of the game. And it's a game that gets worse and worse as companies focus more and more on how do we get the most out of someone per membership before they run away. And they just, and this is part of it, they feel like dating apps go out of their way to make them feel anxious, to make them feel like while they would normally turn an app off and come back tomorrow, the apps are designed to make them feel like, don't leave. You could be missing out on the perfect person. You're just one more swipe away, maybe 2 more swipes away, and then another half an hour away after that. And it's increasing the anxiety, it's increasing the stress, it's increasing the workload on the users. They're turning their online dating experience into a part-time job when it really shouldn't be more than 5 to 10 minutes of their day. And so the industry is at a crossroads now, but it's kind of always been that way. We have to make money. If we don't make money, we go away. But we also have this unique responsibility. We're not selling shoes or potato chips. We are selling the potential of changing someone's life. We're selling the potential of giving someone to share their life with. It's an important responsibility. And we have a lot of power when it comes into that. We are the most common way people meet and find love. And we have to find a way to challenge, we have to figure out how to address that, the needs of the clients, while still figuring out how to make a profit. And it's not something that you fix instantly. And I know that's the primary focus of the industry. It has been for years. I remember talking to one of the largest dating companies in the world a decade ago about working with my company Profile Helper. And they loved the idea. They loved what it could do for their clients and even for the user experience. The reason that deal fell through was they didn't see a path where it would make an impact on their quarterly earnings in the next 2 quarters. Like, it's not about some things are about making a difference on the quarterly earnings. Some things are about making your app more stable and profitable and better for your user base over the course of the next several years. So, it took us a couple decades to get to the problem that the industry's in. And it's going to take us several years to fix it. It's not a quick fix, but it's going to come down to 3 main factors: fostering authenticity, creating more supportive environment, and education. With fostering authenticity, it's great that dating apps offer like photo verification badges and things like that. We're not doing enough. Just because a photo has been verified to be the person, there needs to be better tools. And again, I'm a writer, so I'm not. This is me talking. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a programmer. But there needs to be tools that not just say this is this person, but this is this person without heavy filters, without AI. That still in a recent enough photo that they still look like that person you meet. And the same thing goes with text. And this might actually sound a little hypocritical because I write dating profiles for a living. We are very careful to stick within the voice of our client and to review things with our client and make sure that it represents them. There's a huge number of profiles that are being written through AI, either through AI services or just people hopping on to ChatGPT. And I'll tell you, I went on to ChatGPT and I asked it why do you suck at writing dating profiles? And it actually answered me, which was awesome. I wasn't expecting it to, but it told me we're not good at writing dating profiles because when we write a dating profile, it's to try to capture the most attention possible. So they're writing something that's going to be hyper generic, very superficial. That might get someone some initial attention from a larger crowd, but it does nothing to help them connect with the people they're compatible. So there has to be some tools that could be brought in. I use AI detection things on my clients all the time. Because not only can I read when their profiles they bring to me are written in AI, but then I can just pop it in to an AI filter and then give them a screen capture showing them there's a 98% chance this was written through AI. Now, the last part of authenticity is going to be better scam prevention. I'm never going to suggest that you guys will be able to prevent all scammers. Scammers are great at their jobs. If I didn't hate them as much as I do, I'd respect the hell out of them. But they're always going to be one step ahead. But they're also lazy sometimes. And that's to our benefit. So there needs to be more filters that be put in that can be passive. If Alexa can listen to when I say Alexa and not listen and not theoretically be recording me otherwise, there are things we can be scanning passively for in the background when people are sending messages on dating sites and writing things in profiles. If somebody someone sends a message saying that they're from the same state of the person, but they're currently working on an oil rig somewhere, does that mean that person's a scammer? Not 100%, but it should sure as hell set up a red flag somewhere. If we can scan for scammers better, we will just provide a much better environment for the users. And do you make money by stopping scammers? No. In fact, I'm sure there are several apps where guys specifically are spending extra money to talk to female scam profiles. So for some companies, it might not even be in their interest to stop those scammers, but it's driving more people away than it's making money. The next thing is creating a more supportive environment. Customer service in this industry sucks. Let's be honest. In a lot of cases, phone support has been removed from almost every major app. There's now email only. Sometimes there's AI chat, which is always frustrating. And usually sometimes there is a chat window. You can eventually work through AI to get to a person, but you may end up waiting 3-4 hours to get somebody. A lot of those times the AI chats don't give you the answers you need. And a lot of times the emails go unresponded to. I was on the phone yesterday Like just yesterday morning with a client who's using Field. She paid for, and yeah, now I'm calling some companies out. I'll call it 2 companies now. She had paid for their highest membership level. She's a 31-year-old attractive woman who's looking for not just to be like a unicorn or things, but she's looking for a real partner, someone who is going to give her the type of relationship she's wanting. And she decided Field was the place to go. She signs up, pays for the full membership. It's on her credit card receipt. It's showing up on the site, but she still has free member privileges only. It says she has full member privileges. She's contacted customer service multiple times. She's gotten no response. She's now currently trying to decide between blasting them on social media or just disputing the charge and trying. I mean, even personally, I have memberships on tons of dating apps. I have been trying to get unbanned from Hinge for 2 years now, and I can't get anything besides a boilerplate message from customer service. I've not been able to reach a single person. So I can't imagine what someone who doesn't know anything about the industry, because I've tried all sorts of different inroads and I've gotten nothing. So if I was actually trying to date, I would have rage quit a year and a half ago. And that's the last thing is education. A lot of online daters, they pick these apps for one reason or another, but then they don't know how to use them. They don't know how to communicate well. It's a skill that a lot of people don't have as well as they used to. And they don't know how to present themselves without stepping on their own feet. We have the opportunity to provide guidance. That doesn't mean algorithmic matching, because the algorithmic matching isn't doing it, folks. We're talking about daters. They're going out looking into the wild. They're ending up with these god-awful influencers who are giving them bad advice. They're bringing this bad advice back to your platforms, upsetting your other members with bad strategy and polluting the entire waters. But if you can, it's like one of the great teams we have here today is Dating Through Curiosity. They are trying to teach people to communicate better. There are ways to work with companies like this where you can actually impact the way people talk to each other. It'll impact the success rates of your clients. It'll impact the success rates and the satisfaction rates of the apps. It'll bring more people in when they feel like you're there to help them and you actually want them to succeed, as opposed to just wanting their money. I mean, I've been a little hard on you guys today. That's sort of what I do. I think going back to the early days of starting to work with Mark, he used to sort of refer to me as his hammer. I'm not doing it because I hate the industry. I love the industry. It's I'm 6.5 years into a marriage with a woman who thankfully hasn't realized she could do a hell of a lot better. It's also given me my entire livelihood. But on top of that, I've seen what it can do for people. I've seen it through the 40,000 people I've worked with. I've seen people who thought they were not going to have another chance at love, finding someone to spend the rest of their lives with. I've seen people who failed at finding love for over a decade start opening up conversations when they didn't know how until given the right things. There's a few common sense changes that people need to make to their strategies and the way they present themselves. And we have the opportunity to help them. If we don't, then this last generation specifically are going to abandon us, and we need to make sure that we support everyone along that chain so that we can actually succeed and we can help people. And yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's not stuff that shows up on the balance sheet immediately, but it's the kind of work that if we do it, everyone's going to win. The members are going to have better experience. They're going to have better lives. We're going to have better wallets. It's just everybody wins. So thanks.
There we go. Brighten it up a bit. Eric, well done. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. I've got a question for you from Steve, actually.
I know Steve.
Our compadre on the Cortland Brooks team, long term now. Actually, he used to be the new guy on the team. Now it's 10 years, I think. So Steve Dean is a dating coach, and he's on the Cortland Brooks team. And I must say, Steve and Eric are, Eric is always very good at critique. Both are very good at critiquing, but both come at it from very different angles. So yeah, one of the things that we normally like to do with new clients is do what we call a tear down. We'll do a critique, and it's a great way to start up and provide some initial value. So Steve has got a question for you, Eric. So his question is, have you come across any dating app revenue models that escape the traditional trap of losing users to their own success every time they match them to compatible partners? Any solutions for the continuity problem?
No, I haven't. And so again, this is, I deal specifically on the end user thing, and the reality is that we might lose them when they're happy, but you have the option of losing someone happy or losing someone pissed.
Yeah.
Uh, and which would you do? Because someone who leaves happy might only tell 2 or 3 people that they met their partner on a dating app, but someone who leaves pissed is going to tell everybody. Every time one of their friends is thinking about going online dating, they're going to say, "Oh, that's a waste of your time. Why are you doing it? It's all scammers. It's all garbage people." So, and I've seen dating apps throughout the years. They've tried to come up with sort of these once you're in a relationship products, things to keep people engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And someone might hit the right note on that. For me, I haven't seen one yet, but honestly, we're worried. Why are we worrying about what we're going to do after they leave if we have trouble keeping them in the first place until they succeed at their goal?
Yeah. It's an age-old question, isn't it? I mean, so I've got a strong opinion on that. I think ultimately, if we do a really great job at the dating stage, and if we really dig deep and ask the right questions and really get to know our users, then we earn the right to elongate the value and paid relationship into coaching in a relationship, which unfortunately seems to be a thing that most people don't look at until they really, really need it, and it's too late.
It's, very few people go get checkups at the doctor when they should. Very few people hire a therapist before they're in a mental health crisis. We are a society that is cool with the idea of fixing a problem, but we really need to let it break first. People don't contact me because they're happy with what's going on and just want a little tune-up. They contact me because either they're smart enough to know they want to start off on the right foot, or the pain of the failure they're having has gotten great enough that they have to reach out to help. And so I love the idea of having coaching products and relationship guidance products for people, because especially in early relationships and moving forward, people need guidance. They need to learn how to communicate as couples. I mean, I remember early on into my relationship with my wife, that was one of the biggest challenges we had, was learning how to really effectively communicate with each other. And, we've been married for 6.5 years. We've been together for almost 13. We still work on that.
Mm-hmm.
So having products like that are great, but I think as much as we may have the right to do it, if we may have earned the right to do it, we might be putting the cart before the horse a little bit right now. Because right now we have a bigger problem as far as user retention and user selection.
Yeah. Jean-Claude, you had a question. If you'd like to put the question in. I've got another question from Steve, and then we'll turn our attention to your question, Jean-Claude, if you'd like to ask it in the area. So Steve also asked, could there be an anti-ghosting model where users propose a fee for their next date to be held in escrow until they mutually confirm that they actually showed up to the date? If both parties confirm, they get their fee back. That's intriguing.
I think it's awesome. I've seen a similar model with a weight loss product. I think, Mark, you turned me on to this a long time ago, where you would place a bet on yourself on losing a certain amount of weight.
Yeah.
And if you met your weight loss goal, you got part of the pot of all the people who had placed their bets and didn't hit their goals. So I think that might be a good parallel. I think the idea of doing something where there's a consequence for ghosting is important. I think on the other side of that, with some of the larger social discovery apps where they emphasize this sort of dopamine slot machine platform, they make too much money on people. They don't care about ghosting. They care about the actions that the users are doing that are making money. And unfortunately, the ghosting issue is something they take because people are paying for premium memberships and for boosts and for compliments, and they're extending matches because they want to connect with these people, even if those people might not actually be there to connect. Now, what I would also consider is, a strike system on apps like that, where if you have a profile and you match, and it's a matching based system like a Tinder or Bumble, and you're matching with X amount of people, and you are ghosting them all because your goal was to get the matches and nothing else. It's a Starbucks coffee punch card. When you hit your 10th ghosting, you're invited to leave for free. But things need to be done that might cost a little bit of money up front to let the real daters, the peer daters, for I think is what a term Colin used, know that the platforms actually have their back and not just their wallets.
That's a great quote. Good. All right. Let's go into networking, shall we, Eric? We appreciate your time. This is absolutely fantastic. Very rich smorgasbord of learning, and I think it might fuel some discussion. So let's go to the networking and see what people have to say, eh?
Okay.
All right. Meet you on the tables. Thank you, Eric.
My pleasure.